Hello everyone and welcome to BrickCats. I am so excited today to be covering the latest model from designer FlyInSpace and distributed by BrickVault, the EF-76 Nebulon-B frigate. As always, please consider subscribing, leaving a like and a comment, or supporting what I do in any other way you see fit. I greatly appreciate it. If you're interested in building this or any other BrickVault model, you can take 15% of the cost off your order by using my discount code CATS15. I do receive a small amount of compensation when you use my code, and this is an amazing way to support the channel while taking a bite out of the price of the instructions. Sometimes it seems like whenever I cover a model of a particular ship, another one pops up soon after, so if you're interested in another incredible Nebulon-B in a slightly larger scale, check out my review of Rebelmaker's Nebulon-B frigate. Without any substitutions, FlyInSpace's Nebulon-B was coming in at 5 stores at $182 without shipping and tax, which would be around $224 with shipping and tax. In my reviews, I offer my opinions on aesthetics and model features, parts issues you might want to look out for, the build experience, the model's integrity, and I close out with my overall impression and pricing information in the conclusion. If you're watching this review, I assume you've bought the instructions or are interested in buying them. I also assume a basic level of familiarity with Bricklink's ordering system and LEGO nomenclature. I only use genuine LEGO bricks and I always purchase the instructions. I create these reviews for my own personal enjoyment and in the hopes that my advice will make your experience more enjoyable and or less expensive. FlyInSpace's Nebulon-B measures approximately 18.5 inches long, 3.5 inches wide, and 8.25 inches tall. Starting up front, the dark bluish-gray sections contrast very nicely with the light bluish-gray exterior. The nose shape is very well formed with the newer 2x2 by 1 1/3 corner piece and angled sections on all 3 sides. The front section has the sensor, bridge, and crew modules constructed very nicely, and the designer's skill with greebling and detail is on full display in the outer hull section down the middle. The outer hull tapers at a slight angle off the vertical, even though I'm holding it kind of awkwardly. You can kind of see that there, so that's really great. And both the upper and the lower antenna are represented here and by this little section down here. I do wish this lower one was set off of the hull, as you can pretty clearly see in Empire that it is not snuggled up against the hull like it is here. And I feel like the antenna on the port side here could be a little taller, maybe with a 3L bar or something. But those aren't difficult to change by any means if you choose to. The port and starboard side of the ship are asymmetric, and there's lots of detail on each side. I especially like the use of the minifigure neck bracket. I will turn this around here to kind of give you a little bit of a glimpse inside the hull there. It's very cool. Going back to the port side, the medical bay window is represented with this 1x2 round brick with holes right here. And detailing in this transition area between the front section of the hull and the neck is really good. And just everywhere you look, there is just something interesting to look at. The spine or the neck looks fantastic with more greebling on both sides, making full use of the Technic lift arm that comprises the majority of this section. I do find it a little odd. There is some mismatch of alignment, just due to the way that the brackets work out, but from most angles you're not going to see this. The engineering section begins the transition back to the engine housing, and again there's excellent greebling everywhere you look. FlyInSpace does a really nice job representing the various layers of the Nebulon-B. You can kind of see right here. You get a better view from the back. And the few shots we get of the ship in Empire, this area looks particularly good to me. The deflector shield tower is built out at the top of the engine section here. And there's some nice use of minifigure hands to create some more greebling details right here. The designer has constructed the shape of the rear section incredibly accurately, and managed to get even the somewhat obscure angle right at the bottom here. So you can see this is kind of like a 45-degree angle, and then it steepens slightly down right here. The exterior of this section fits very nicely around the greebling details. There's hardly any noticeable gap, so that's really impressive. And at the back of the ship, the engine array is done very nicely. It might have been nice to include some 2x2 dishes for some engine glow in either white, which would be more screen accurate, or translite blue, which is more traditional, but you can add those if you like. So of course, Nebulon-B has the 2 engines in groupings, and then the triangle configuration at the bottom here. The final details are the static discharge vanes at the bottom of the ship, and the designer makes use of the newer pointy wedge piece, and it scales very well with the rest of the model. The ship and the stand are integrated, and you cannot separate them even if you wanted to. The stand looks very nice with some minimal but effective detailing, like these curved slopes around the front and back here, and the section in the middle. Overall, this is an amazing looking model, and it's packed with an impressive level of detail at this scale. FlyInSpace's Nebulon-B requires 249 elements and 1,464 pieces. I'll say right up front that this model has a ton of really useful pieces for other mocks if you plan on cannibalizing it later, and this increases the value proposition. In general, the designer and Brickvault have done a really good job sticking with pieces that aren't particularly rare or expensive as well, so I don't have too many substitution recommendations. The 4-brick modified 1x2 with studs on sides, part 52107, specified in light bluish gray, are nearly completely hidden in the nose section, right around here. You can barely see the edge of one of them from underneath the model, so any neutral color is definitely safe, but in my opinion any color will be fine. The 2 minifigure utensil screwdriver, wide head, 3-rib handle in flat silver, part 11402A tends to be quite expensive. I already have one of them, which is why you see one here. I would replace these with the bar 2L with stop ring in dark bluish gray, increasing the quantity of these from 6 to 8. 6 of the 10 Technic brick 1x2 with holes, part 32000 in dark bluish gray, are hidden completely in the engine section back here, and can be any color. The 7 Technic pin 3L with friction ridges in black, part 6558, are much more common in blue. These are all hidden and the color doesn't matter. Similarly, the Technic axle 2L notched in black, part 32062, is used to connect this round brick section on the engine here, back here. And this is hidden, and the more common red will work just fine. That's it as far as substitutions go, but you might consider buying all or most of the following elements directly from LEGO's Pick-a-Brick service. Pick-a-Brick orders over $35 qualify for free shipping, and if you spend more than $14 in the bestseller and standard categories, all of the handling fees are waived. Pick-a-Brick tends to be the best place to buy large quantities of elements that tend to be more expensive on Bricklink. And a note about my Pick-a-Brick recommendations, occasionally I have to increase the Pick-a-Brick recommendations, meaning I add other elements to the Pick-a-Brick list, and that's just to put over the $14. It's almost never going to be more expensive buying elements and quantities from Pick-a-Brick. And that's just because you save so much on the shipping when you eliminate a store or two. FlyInSpace's Nebulon-B requires 909 steps, with each part or subassembly you add in each step highlighted in aqua against a white background. I thought the pacing of the build was good, and you aren't adding too many or too few pieces in a given step. I did finally pre-sort some of the pieces into the major categories: bricks, modified bricks, plates, modified plates, slopes, small pieces, which include things like bars or hinges, Technic pieces, and then tiles. The build took me about 8 hours over the course of a few days. FlyInSpace is known for providing extremely detailed and helpful instructions. For the more difficult connections or those where alignment is important, he takes the time to provide visual references and explanatory notes to help the builder out. I wouldn't say that the model would be impossible to build without them, but for certain connections, especially on this model, it would definitely be a lot less fun. So while this build is certainly a challenge and best suited for those with some experience building more involved models, it's not entirely frustrating or inaccessible. I found a few minor sequencing errors. The subassembly that goes on in step 156 is difficult to put on due to the dark bluish gray 1x3 tile that goes on in step 135. This subassembly has a 1x2 tile that goes behind the 1x3 tile, so if you simply remove the 1x3 and replace it afterwards, that works better. In steps 624 and 653, I found it almost comically difficult to get the pin in the hole of the driving ring extension, to say nothing of getting it to the correct depth. This is probably just a me problem, but I found that putting the tile with clip on the half pin first makes it a lot easier to insert the pin into the driving ring extension. This way you know you have the correct depth to connect the tile with the clip. In step 641, the ice skate means you can't connect the subassembly without removing the ice skate, otherwise the tile won't be able to fit over the stud. The subassembly added in step 772 was very difficult to get in place for me, just because at this point in the build, the hollow stud you're aiming for is in a really hard to reach spot, and that's like way back here. I think this could probably go on earlier, maybe before step 719 when you start building the starboard paneling for the engine section right here. There were also some other specific areas that gave me a lot of trouble or just didn't work for me. Constructing the nose area right up front was the most difficult, as it relies on some finicky alignments and several pieces are held in place with tension, or fit into gaps created by other pieces. Specifically, the top two tiles here, they still aren't perfect, so this area in particular, go slow and just pay attention to FlyInSpace's notes. In steps 510 and 516, the two subassemblies can be difficult to get clipped to the pneumatic T-piece. I recommend using a longer plate to apply counterpressure to the other side, otherwise the pneumatic T-piece usually gets levered out with the clip it's already connected to. Step 555 has you inserting a 3/4 inch Technic pin onto a bar 1L with 1x1 round plate. This connection doesn't have any clutch, and since the 1x1 tile with clip takes up a lot of the bar in the step 554, the Technic pin doesn't stay in place with just tension. I solved this by using a light bluish gray Technic half pin instead, and it's hidden so far beneath the rest of the greeveling you can barely see it right in here that you'll hardly notice it. In step 879, the minifigure hand doesn't connect to the ingot piece as shown. The minifigure hand just doesn't stay in place. I was actually pretty surprised that this didn't work, but you can try it for yourself. Apparently minifigure hands only connect if there's that middle anti-stud, or a fully enclosed 1x1 connection like on a brick or a plate, providing a slight compression force to the hand itself. And the space where it goes is right here. You can see there's just a little 1x1 gap, that's where that hand should go. So if you want to fill it, 1x1 round plate in dark bluish gray will work just fine. In step 453, it's really difficult to tell which 1x1 piece is the tile and which is the plate, but it doesn't matter in the end. And looking at the later steps, you can just see the groove on the tile which goes right above the light bluish gray roller skate piece. Last but not least, in steps 470 and 506, the note says that the panels should meet at a 45-degree angle, and I'm pretty sure the designer meant that each panel should be 45 degrees from the horizontal here, but since he's talking about the angled section on the side of the hull here, I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be a 90-degree angle. Kinda see what I'm talking about here. So it's this angle right here. So if you divide that in half, it would be 45, but all together I think it's a 90. So other than having a brief moment of panic here, you should realize that it really can't be any other way, and it still connects to the main hull as you'd expect. So don't let the issues I bring up here give you the wrong impression. This is a very fun model to build, and the way some of the sections come together is extremely clever and very satisfying. Despite its complicated construction, the major sections of the model are reasonably sturdy, but this should only be considered a display model, not that there's much to play with anyway. Most of the delicate pieces, like the antenna, can get moved or bumped out of alignment, but these are easy to put back in. Lifting this model, as you have seen a couple times during this video so far, you can see some obvious flexing when you hold it by the neck, but I do find this is the best place to pick it up, it's certainly the most convenient. And I haven't had any major catastrophes doing this. There are two small pieces in particular that repeatedly come loose in my model, and the first is this 1x2 cheese slope right on top here. FlyInSpace loves using the ends of roller skate pieces as connection points, but this is not a stable connection, especially when you use the flat end of the roller skate. So while the other side, the starboard side opposite, is stable, the port side is very loose, and I have not been able to successfully get this to have any kind of clutch. So I just kind of stuff it in there and don't move it too much. The other piece is this container door that is loose right here. The handle of this is inserted into a Technic hole, but on the opposite side, right here, this container door is also connected to that Technic hole. So I'm not sure if it's due to the other door being there or what, but I couldn't get this to stay in, so it's loose, as you can see. Luckily, there's enough to hold it roughly in the spot that it's supposed to be in. I tried a couple of different container doors and none of them worked. So I think it might be because the other side of the Technic bricks hole has something in it. Finally, the base of the stand is 5 studs wide and mostly brick built, which means it does have a fair amount of flex. I'm not concerned about the model wobbling too much from side to side, although it certainly would have been nicer if it was wider. I guess you could make it wider if you really wanted to. But I definitely would have preferred something with Technic lift arms, especially throughout here, because this is really not stable. You can just break that very easily. So that's why I don't really lift this up by the stand, just because I don't trust it too much. So the base does bow, and it's pretty sensitive, but other than that, this is a surprisingly sturdy model. FlyInSpace's Nebulon-B is a very impressive model, and there's little fun details packed in everywhere you look. The fact that this is roughly the same length as a X-Wing mock, but representing something many times larger, is kind of mind-boggling, given the trouble the designer went to include the various visual details. Without any substitutions, I was getting 5 stores and $182 without shipping and tax, or $224 with shipping and tax. With substitutions, I was getting 4 stores and $175 without shipping and tax, or $211 with shipping and tax, or about $13 less. Buying the 40 elements I recommended from Pick-a-Brick, the Pick-a-Brick total was $38, which did not include shipping and handling because those were waived, but did include tax. The remaining elements I got from Bricklink, or I was getting from Bricklink, 3 stores, $107 without shipping and tax, or $132 with shipping and tax, and the total was therefore about $170, or $54 less than if I had only gone with Bricklink. And buying as much as I could from Pick-a-Brick, my Pick-a-Brick total was $128. Again, the shipping and handling fees were waived, and it did include tax. The few remaining elements, I think there were 15 from Bricklink, I could get from 2 stores and $14 without shipping and tax, or about $27 with shipping and tax, and the total was therefore $155, or about $69 less than if I had done no substitutions and only went with Bricklink. Instructions for FlyInSpace's Nebulon-B cost $27.99, and there will be a link to the BrickVault webpage where you can buy them if you choose. Thanks as always for watching my review of FlyInSpace's Nebulon-B. If you built this model, you have something to share that I left out, or have a question about something I didn't cover, please leave your thoughts below in the comments. Remember to subscribe, leave the video a like or a comment, and follow me on Instagram if you haven't already, and I hope to see you back next time.